You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live. We're currently tracking Hurricane Beryl as it continues to push into the Caribbean Sea, and it won't have gone unnoticed, I'm sure, that we are estimating the storm to be slightly higher than the last National Hurricane Center advisory, giving it 155 mile per hour winds and an estimated pressure of 940 millibars. Unofficial, but the National Hurricane Center will update at the end of this hour, and we expect that we might have a bit of a bump up in that intensity based on the storm's increasingly good appearance. When we left you earlier on today, after it made its dreadful landfall over the Windward Islands, the storm was looking good as it was intensifying. At that point, it may have reached slightly higher than 150 miles per hour in the first instance. And then it started to look a little bit frail for a bit, but now it's rebounded back again and is looking better and probably the best we've seen it. Indeed, in terms of the numerical metrics, it's the best it is right now, as we recently had an eye temperature up to 22 degrees Celsius, which is the best we've seen so far, and the eye wall structure is looking pretty good. The amount of deep cloud tops there on the eye wall and the whole region of the eye wall of Beryl is looking good. More and more black areas appearing in this satellite imagery, which correlates the temperatures into the minus 70s range. My name is Nathan Foy here in the studio once again. I'm not sure whether we're going to be here for just the hour or whether we're going to push on for a longer stream tonight. I think it depends on whether we think it will become a Category 5 or not, or indeed whether the National Hurricane Center pull out a rabbit out of the hat there and might surprise us at their next update with the intermediate advisory. It's entirely possible because I think Recon are on there. Well, I don't know if they'll get there before the advisory, but our team will fill us in on that in a little moment here. But as we look at this satellite imagery, Beryl looking extremely good. Even on the unenhanced infrared there, we just saw the last visibles go by, and Beryl has now been plunged into darkness. Well, I'm joined by quite a lot of people here tonight, a full house actually. We've got Dino, Maury, Preston, David, Chris, Leo. Well, that's Ethan, but his name's Leo on here. He's presenting himself as his cat. And JJ and Jose. First of all, I want to talk to Chris because your namesake happened the other day, last night, and it didn't do very much. It was a tropical storm that didn't last very long. Just wonder if you have any quick thoughts on that.
Yeah. Kind of not surprised what the area was in. Kind of hoping it was going to form in the Atlantic. Not surprised it didn't last long. I was watching the cone of it, and they were saying it wasn't going to last long, but that's just kind of like my little bit of a tidbit on it.
So there it is. You've been let down there, haven't you? You got to wait another 6 years now. Well, let's see if we can talk to Ethan then, who's of course joining us, one of our main guys from Indianapolis, and you are obviously watching this storm very closely. What's the news at your end?
Yeah, so as per usual, going to go right into things with Recon. We do have a plane inbound. It is one of the NOAA aircraft this time. It's the P-2 Orion aircraft that has a lot of instruments on board. Imagine anyone would expect that. They are going straight for the northeastern eye wall, so that's good. Now, obviously, I have to say, from this 155 mile an hour estimate that we're giving it, that is entirely subject to change at a moment's notice. I am personally on board with the 155 mile an hour estimate, primarily based on, if you look on satellite imagery, ever since the NHC has called 150, the eye has gotten a lot more stable. It's a heck of a lot more stable at that. It's not wobbling around. I mean, sure, it still is a little bit, but it's better than what it was earlier. Cloud tops are a lot more colder, and overall, the storm looks a lot more healthier. And then you got the eye temperature that's up too. So if I had to guess, it wouldn't honestly surprise me if Recon go in here and fight a Category 5 storm. It would not surprise me. Would I forecast one right now? I still would not, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and neither would I. And you never know what Recon will find. There can be some strange business that goes on in there, and can find things that surprise us in one direction or another, even. We've also got Preston with us tonight. It's nice to have you with us, and you're showing us a viewpoint showing the lightning detection within the storm, and there's quite a bit of it.
Indeed, it looks like this storm certainly is intensifying. What you're looking at right now is a picture from UW-Madison Sims, one of the leading tropical cyclone universities and research institutions. You have here for approximately about 4:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. That's going to be about 21:30 Z to 22:30 Z. You can see definitely certified lightning flashes going on inside the eye that normally signifies an intensifying storm. So all models are definitely pointing to a definitely significant system right now, and intensification is definitely occurring. Now, is this a Category 5 storm? That's going to be the question that we're going to look for throughout the night as Recon goes in. But at the moment, I agree with Ethan and Nathan. This is not likely a Category 5 storm if you were to forecast one, but it's definitely on the cusp of being one. We're just going to have to wait till Recon goes in and confirms whether or not this is truly a Category 5 storm.
Now, unfortunately, this storm still is, well, unfortunately, if you want to see the storm get really, really super strong, the storm is still on borrowed time. The wind shear is going to be increasing relatively soon. Now, how soon, I can't exactly say. I know within the next 24 hours it is supposed to rise a little bit. Let me just pull up a little page here. That'll give me a better data of what we're going to be seeing. So yeah, shear rises quite considerably based on some models from here on out, Nathan. Midday tomorrow, the GFS and the HMOD model have shear up to 20 knots, while the HWRF has 10 knots of wind shear.
Interesting. Do we know what it is right now? Near zero?
Currently, it looks like to be between 10 to 15 knots, at least via Sims-derived product.
Yeah, Sims is going to have that. But the reason that Beryl isn't being sheared to death right now is there is an upper-level anticyclone, or a ULAC that we like to call it, I think, directly over the storm right now. And that is helping this storm breathe a lot. And that is primarily what has led to this intensification trend that we've been seeing today.
Looking at the longer trend of this storm, though, it is shrinking again.
Yes.
A little bit, but it is overall shrinking a little bit. And I've also noticed there, southwest side, outside of the central core of the storm, there's nothing there anymore.
I do wonder if that's a bit of dry air, maybe.
And that's David there as well, and you've been tracking the storm too.
Yes, but looking very impressive.
As we all have been, of course, throughout the course of today. Obviously made its extremely impressive run through the Windward Islands, and made history as it did so there on the first day of July, one of the most powerful storms in that region. In fact, for the Windward Islands, it is the most powerful hurricane to move through that area on in modern records by a fair long way. The next highest intensity for a storm that moved through the Grenadines was a pair of high-end Category 2 storms in 1886 and 1898, an incredibly long time ago. And those two storms were both in the peak season in late August and in September. So two storms that you would expect, if anything, to see at that time of year, and this one that you would not. Beryl's small size has surely helped it along here in some form or another, though, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely has.
Now, things can turn good or bad for small storms very quickly. So, how has it managed to keep it going for all this time?
Probably just good conditions, really. There's not there is dry air interference, but of course by that UALC that we talked about earlier, and also the system being over fairly warm sea surface temperatures, and also the oceanic heat content, and lack of wind shear, even though there is some. Of course, it's just this storm really has managed to fend itself off from all potential forces. Uh, so it really is surprising, but we do expect these storms to hold their own for somewhat of a time.
If you haven't seen the latest National Hurricane Center cone from the 5 p.m. advisory, this is what it looks like. There it is, a very powerful storm once again, 150 mile per hour winds at that point, well, still is officially, moving west-northwestwards there at 21 miles per hour, and they expect there that it will still be a major hurricane when it's approaching Jamaica, but it will weaken a little bit more by then, and will continue to weaken according to that forecast until it reaches the Yucatan Peninsula. Just an update on the watches and warnings. Believe it or not, there are actually no hurricane warnings in effect anymore, which is obviously a good thing for now, but a hurricane watch is in effect for Jamaica, a tropical storm warning still for Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Martinique, and the south coast of the Dominican Republic. Now that was upgraded to a warning from Punta Palenque westward into Haiti as far west as Anstahino. So all of Jamaica, a hurricane watch, and that could become a warning pretty soon, actually. Maybe late tonight, maybe by tomorrow morning.
Adding to this, I included a webcam about Jamaica, since it became one of the spots in which Beryl would make a landfall there.
There is a viewpoint. Looks like it's been a very nice looking colourful evening there at one location in Jamaica, Port Royal, if I recall. I can't remember what coast that's on now, but the name rings a bell. But looking out towards that sunset there, it's pretty calm out in Jamaica. It is still quite far away from the storm, and that is sort of a testament really that it's going to be clocking up those miles very quickly, or kilometers, depending on what preference you are. I've just got kilometers on my screen right now. It's 1,424 kilometers from Jamaica, which in miles is about nearly 900. So it's still got a long way to go, but at a forward speed of 21 miles per hour or 33 kilometers per hour, it is really heading off in that direction. So, Recon, do we think we'll have a reading before the next advisory?
Yes, I do think we will.
So it's
At
gonna,
least-
But it might be close. Like we're talking about, like within 10 minutes of it.
it's going to be
Oh,
an
we've-
interesting hour then.
We've got a little bit of time to wait. But yes, it is entirely possible that in basically 45 minutes we have a Category 5 storm on our hands. It is entirely possible.
People are going to freak
And
out.
Ethan, where's the flight, the Recon flight? What direction?
They're still flying southeastwards. They're heading towards the generalized direction of the northeastern Iowa at the moment.
I'm guessing it was from St. Croix again.
Yep. Oh no, they have turned southwestward.
Oh,
But yes, they are flying, heading 224 at the moment, which is southwestward.
yep. Sort of heading into that direction. I forgot what I was going to say next, actually. So let's switch over once again to another view. Well, Preston, I know you were just looking at wind shear a second ago. You might want to take a look at that again.
Yes, this is Sims-derived wind shear here. You can definitely see that intense band of wind shear just to the west, to the southwest of the Dominican Republic and near Haiti. So that's what Beryl is going to have to deal with as it moves to its west. However, you can definitely see that ULAC, upper level anticyclone, just to its southwest there, spinning up and feeding this storm, and definitely being a boon to this storm as it does develop and move to the west. Shear is going to be a problem, but it's definitely not a problem right now, and that's what we've seen why Beryl has continued its intensification. I can put a few more products on here. What you're looking at now is shear. Let's switch to convergence.
Oh, we've lost your audio there.
I'm here. Convergence then shows how much rain bands are coming together. Now, this is a satellite-derived product. This means that weather satellites such as GOES-16, GOES-17, they're looking into the storm, and these are quantified products. They are not observational. These are from numerical models via satellite information. So you can see convergence there from the storm. This storm definitely is going to be significant as it moves to its west, and all of these factors really are making it a significant storm.
Now, you were talking about this anticyclone. Does that have any reason or anything to do with why, for some reason, we're not seeing much in terms of banding on that southwest side? It seems to be quite bare down there, all of a sudden.
Well, you have to think of just physics here for a second. You have an anticyclone, that's divergence. You have divergence coming through at the upper levels of the atmosphere. So that's going to clear out some of those upper level clouds. You can definitely see, I have the divergence map up right now on the screen. You can definitely see that ULAC is right above the storm. That is helping the storm derive wind shear. Now, I'm not currently too confident that is why there is no banding on the southwest side. You do have that lower amount of shear to that southwest side, as we presented earlier. But overall, this ULAC is definitely a major reason why Beryl is so strong.
Look at this satellite imagery again, and it's suggesting that the cloud tops are increasingly getting better again around the immediate periphery of the eye. I'm just going to try and take a sample of the storm, the eye temperature once again, and it is back up to 22 degrees Celsius, which again is tied for the maximum that we've seen satellite derived at any case from this storm. So back to 22 degrees Celsius again, which is really impressive. Not that many storms beat that on geostationary satellite imagery. So 22 degrees with good cloud tops. Not the best cloud tops, but there's a few things to factor in here. It's quite a low latitude, although that usually favors perhaps maybe a little bit higher cloud tops, but it's rather small. And I'm telling you what, on this latest imagery, there's a lot more minus 70 degree cloud tops around it as well. It's getting mighty close, I would say, but you never know. Recon might spring a surprise in either direction, but I would expect that it's going to be showing quite a strong storm, unless we get a bombshell eye wall replacement cycle, but no signs of that yet, I don't think.
Well, taking a look at that imagery that you have up, Nathan, you can definitely see a bit of weakening, at least by cloud tops on the very eastern side of the storm. Now, that center portion of the storm definitely looks to be intense, but as you see, I think you can see some of those cloud tops starting to fade in the eastern half of the storm.
There's a little gap, but I don't see it lasting long.
Well, I mean, you do see the black colors starting to fade out there. You can see a bit of a gravity wave there trying to propagate from the center of the storm there. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, definitely a kind of a micro scale feature, but to how this storm develops.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ethan, why don't you tell us what Recon, how they're going to be going about this storm in your view? I think people might want to know more about why they do their particular patterns, for instance.
Well, I have no idea how the pattern is. It's all about the plan that the National Hurricane Center requests.
But there's a reason why they go in a straight direction from one quadrant to another quadrant, isn't there?
I guess so, but I am not aware of that reason, unfortunately.
Oh, Ethan.
Well, I think it would be mainly due to the symmetries of the storm, how the storm is constructed. You often have times of tropical cyclones that are quite lopsided, and also it does give you an area of the quadrants, because the quadrants are going to be developing the storm. Now, hurricanes are mainly a circle, but if you have a very square pattern of how the winds are, you can get the intensity. So it basically covers two birds with one stone. If you partially meteorology, partially convenience, I would say.
Yeah. Well, what do we reckon about the pressure then as we look into this storm? If you were extrapolating the pressure from earlier on in the day, it must be now probably upper 930s, if I was to guess. Do you think we'll be looking at numbers like that?
I still think it's lower 940s. That's probably it's just because this system, it's still fairly small. And of course that doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. But I feel like if the system were to be that close to a Category 5, it would still sustain its 940s pressure just for a little bit longer, unless if it strengthens to a significant point. I think it's just because of, even though the eye is symmetrical, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a reading of maybe 939 millibars, but I'm not currently expecting it right now, just because of the current forecasts.
Let's talk to some people right now then. First of all, Ty Interpreting Weather. Thanks very much for joining us and been a member for 11 months. It's nice to have you on board with us as well. But feel free to send in your comments and questions right now. I suppose we've got quite a bit more time to talk about what people are saying, more in terms of thought processes and opinions rather than fact, considering that the storm is now back over waters. But obviously we'll get the facts from the Recon planes a little bit later on. Of course, when we're looking at the storm using satellite methods only, it is somewhat of an inexact science, and there can be discrepancies, and that's why sometimes we can get shocks when we get the direct observations from these planes when they enter the storm. Also, anyone who has been experiencing this hurricane so far on the ground, let us know how things are going. We know that places like Barbados much earlier today, well, didn't they dodge a bullet? It could have been a much stronger storm for them, but they avoided hurricane force winds, and indeed I think they only got a maximum wind there of 52 miles per hour. St. Lucia, they got winds of about, I think, 55 miles per hour earlier on as well. But obviously the worst places that were affected by the hurricane earlier were the islands of the Grenadines, in particular, where the storm made landfall, a direct landfall on one of these islands, which is quite rare, the island of Carriacou to the northeast of Grenada. And once again, by far the strongest hurricane to make landfall on any of these islands. At least the Windward Islands. The stronger hurricanes, they usually end up further north. There were one or two storms that did pass through the islands without actually making a full landfall. We're thinking of Alan, but this is the strongest one to actually make landfall.
And we all know what the record holder is for the entire of the Lesser Antilles.
Is it Irma?
Yeah, Irma.
Yeah, and yeah, crazy year, of course, back in 2017, and I imagine this has already given people those kinds of vibes. I mean, geez, we almost got the triple storm finish that we got in 2017 as well. If 96L had formed, we almost had a 2017 light there, where we had Beryl, Chris, and 96L in the same way that we had Katia, Irma, and Jose. Much lighter version of that, but nonetheless, I think it may have given people those vibes. Well, anyone else who hasn't spoken yet, feel free to chip in right now.
Actually, I wanted to ask Nathan.
Chris.
Could I go over the preparedness side of everything?
Yeah, well, we may as well. We have tropical storm warnings for the southern part of Hispaniola, and of course a hurricane warning for Jamaica, so very important for them right now.
Yeah, so essentially what you guys kind of want to be doing is with warnings and hurricane warnings, tropical storm warnings come evacuation orders. I know we said this before. We are hoping that everybody who's in those warnings who have been put under evacuation orders have been listening, but unfortunately you are going to have a group of people who don't listen. In the event that you decide to stay and weather the storm, you want to make sure you have a lot of sandbags. Flash flooding is going to be the biggest, essentially the biggest killer that you're going to be facing in a storm like this. Mine plus whatever flying debris, but it's mostly the flood waters that can get you. If you're remaining in your home, make sure your doors have sandbags in front of them. Make sure you have enough supplies to last you for a few days. Mostly make sure you have a first aid kit. Not a lot of people will understand how handy those can be. But it's kind of the stuff that you guys want to have prepared. Also, in the event that you do wind up evacuating and you need to bring documents with you, make sure they are in a waterproof container and make sure that they are your important documents. If you have any medications, bring those with you for your stay wherever you're going to be staying. And we just kind of hope that people did listen to the evacuation orders and there weren't a lot of people that didn't. All really you can do in this situation at this point.
Well, there's still quite a bit of time for Jamaica. We are expecting the storm to be arriving there Wednesday morning. Certainly right now it is proving to be a very strong storm indeed. There's been tons of questions then. Let's see if we can talk to a few people here. Turbulence Mode says that they got a friend on holiday in Punta Cana. What are the risks in that area? Likely big waves, seeing as it's CCW and passing to the south, so same effects as Barbados. Well, it will be further away than for Barbados over there in Punta Cana. There's about 10% chance of tropical storm force winds there, so it shouldn't happen, but definitely sea swells and rip currents. People are really not getting over why our percentage chances for Category 5 are so low in their words. 32% chance we're giving right now. It's not a given, and when we're talking about things like a Category 5 chance, usually it tends to be on the conservative side. That's why but when you talk about that, it's still a considerable percent. It's pretty much 1 in 3, and I think I stand by that percentage chance right now.
I think another main point that you have to think of there when giving a Category 5 rating is how long you anticipate the rating to hold. I mean, this is if Hurricane Beryl would reach a Category 5 status, it would be a very brief peak. I once again agree that this is likely a 1 in 3 chance. I mean, Recon is out in the storm. They're going to be crossing into the central portion of the eye rather shortly, so we should get a good reading. But even if this storm does become Category 5, it will not be a Category 5 for very long. I would like to hear others' opinions on that, but I think that's a rather good point.
You may get burnt, Preston, because many a forecaster already has so far during this storm.
I mean, I don't know. I think the storm is a high Category 4. I mean, this is a debate that meteorologists have had for the last 5 years. You've had several storms that have been very close to getting Category 5, but it's been a matter of time. Whether this storm can hold for Category 5 status for 3 hours, that's going to be interesting. We're going to have to keep watching mesoscale satellite features here on the eye to see if this will hold. But once again, Recon's going in. They'll give us answers. I mean, this is just a satellite watching spectacle at the moment.
Where exactly are they now, Ethan? Do we know?
The eyewall data will be in here in just a few minutes.
Wow, that's quite quick then. So stay tuned for that. It could be a big 30 minutes here. How much time left for intensification? We're not fully sure, but the National
12 hours, I'd say.
maybe. NHC have it around this intensity for... It was for another 12 hours, wasn't it, until it started to weaken. And could this hit Texas? Of course, it didn't take long for that question to appear. Everyone in Texas wants to know if it's going to Texas. We're still waiting on that one. Once again, as we've been pointing out a few times, if it rides the northern periphery of this cone, then yeah, it's going to Texas. But if it doesn't, if it follows the center line, it will be quite close. It will probably be northern Mexico, close to where Alex made landfall in 2010. And of course, if it goes near the southern periphery of that cone, then it's a goner as it goes well inland over Central America and eastern Mexico. So still a lot of room for maneuver right there. And just how large that cone is at day 5 goes to show quite a bit of uncertainty on that forecast, the long range. Now, how big is the eye compared to this morning? I know that earlier, when it was making landfall, or just before that, it was about 20 miles wide. At this point, it's about, not far off that, it's still about 16 or 17 miles wide. So it shrunk a little bit, but it is still quite close to that original number after it made that eyewall replacement cycle. Well, originally after the eyewall replacement cycle this morning, it was about 25 miles briefly, quickly fell to about 20 and then held close to 20 for a good while, and now shrinking just a little bit more. What's the risk of a future major hurricane to move through the Lesser Antilles in the peak months of this season? Well, goodness me. I mean, gee, this feels like peak season right now, doesn't it? But during the peak of hurricane season, anything can happen, and I would definitely have your guard up over there right now, entering that peak season in August and September. I can't really give you a concrete answer without having a crystal ball. I don't think we'll be able to predict things like that for a long time to that level of detail. Certainly a risk, though. Let me see if there's some other comments right now. What is our estimated storm surge forecast for Jamaica? We haven't really thought about storm surge, but I imagine the NHC will have something to say about that. They are expecting 2 to 4 feet.
937 millibar on the pressure, 151 knot foot level winds.
Ooh. So that's getting interesting.
And this is the hard part.
That's a borderline category 5.
Yeah, 151 knot foot level winds is what they got. You need 152 for category 5.
No.
152.
Are you
I'm that
messing with
close.
Nice.
I'm not messing with you. That is what Recon just got. 151 knot foot level winds. Unfortunately, the SFMRs are broken, unfortunately.
Oh.
On literally the most important flight. NHC will be able to get the data, though.
Okay.
I bet. Well, that at least supports 155 miles an hour.
Yes.
At least. So it'll be at least going with 155 at the coming advisory.
And did that cover the whole eye wall?
Just the northeastern eye wall.
We've got a
So-
new
so-
eye temperature of 23 degrees Celsius, and that is
Oh my gosh.
that's actually tied for the highest I've ever seen on a geostationary satellite of a mature hurricane. 23 degrees there right now, and probably warmer actually inside the storm when Recon get actual observations. So very warm eye here.
I think everyone's quite surprised by that data. I mean, we've seen it on satellite, but now to get that confirmation of just almost Category 5 winds, at least flight level, it's that's definitely concerning.
I'm only seeing 146 knot flight levels on my end, but I guess there's an extra reading that I didn't notice.
May I add to this because I found a tweet saying that the agency GEFS has many more NW solutions towards Texas. I heard this from a tweet.
It does what?
Have more solutions.
Okay.
Northwest solutions towards Texas. I heard this from a tweet.
Yep, still in the long range for that area. I don't want to be drawn very much into talking about that at this stage. But this is fascinating that we could be on the cusp of seeing a Category 5 status get given. It's going to be a close one if that data stays the same. I'm just looking at imagery though, and you were saying how smooth it was looking before, but it all of a sudden is looking a bit more wobbly.
Nathan, I want you to have a look at the eye. I'm
Yeah,
looking,
we're looking at it.
Yeah, I'm on. Hang on, I've got to bring up the right screen. Just looking at the inner circle of the eye, and there's a little bit of a peak on the northwestern quadrant. What would that represent?
It doesn't look particularly exciting. All I'm seeing there is a -75 cloud top. But this is some pretty interesting stuff. Just repeat that reading that we've heard, Ethan, there from that plane.
Once again, 151 knot flight level winds.
And just shy of Category 5 status, we think. Is there a scenario where they would run Category 5 based on that data?
I don't know. I seriously, I mean, looking at the presentation and the satellite in the last few frames, I do have to agree with you, Nathan. It is looking more wobbly. Maybe it was David that said that. Sorry, but it is looking more wobbly. I don't know. We're gonna need one more pass. I think maybe that's just hyperbole, but I don't think that you can say it off of one go around here, especially on maybe a short-term Category 5. I mean, this thing's got 12 hours left to intensify, but you have to think, when's the next IRO replacement cycle going to be? Is it going to last? Can this status hold for the period that it needs to hold? We'll see. I mean, I'm not sold yet. I want to see more data.
We have more data. That's the answer.
But I think if they see any opportunity to call it a Category 5, they will.
Do you think they will go for Cat 5 when considering how close it is? And then if they don't, well, then you'll have the discussion post-season where, hey, why didn't you go Cat 5?
Yeah, well, upgrade season after hurricane season, but well, that would be a discussion for another day. The thankful part of this is that this potential attempt at Category 5 status didn't occur over those islands earlier today. It is over completely.
Yes. Open water.
Yep. And warmer sea surface temperatures here as well, which are certainly going to be helping it. Yeah, maybe touching 30 in a few spots, but the satellite imagery just really does start to look like the storm is getting sloppy in those latest frames, although the numbers for it are still looking good. And I saw people hollering in the chat there already that Recon have entered the storm too late, that it was probably a Category 5 before, and they might not find it now. It's going to be an interesting couple of hours here.
Nathan, going by that, what some viewers are saying, should it have been earlier, let's say 2 hours ago, in Cat 5, when we look at the satellite
No.
presentation?
No, their advisory 2 hours ago, they rightly said that the satellite estimates were only showing around 145 to 150 mile per hour winds. The question is whether they should have had Recon in there earlier. I can sort of give them a slip there, because they were concentrating all of their efforts into putting loads of planes in the storm before it made landfall on the islands. The rest of this is relatively inconsequential, and I know it would annoy people if it looks like they've missed a Category 5 opportunity for direct observations, but saving lives first with detailed information before the storm hit the islands.
I heard the news from Twitter. It says that Recon's first pass through the northeast quad of Hurricane Beryl, they found that it's on the cusp of becoming a Category 5 hurricane. They saw Category 5 winds in Hurricane Beryl, in other words.
Well, it's a Category 5 flight level wind by some distance. However, that translates down to the ground. It's very close to that status, so it's going to be one or the other. National Hurricane Center have got a big headache here, I think, as we get up to this next advisory, the 8 p.m. And will they press that button or not? But, when you take a step back, it is a bit silly, really. It's quite a symbolic thing. The difference between 155 miles an hour and 160 miles per hour makes that big 4 become a big 5. But, it is what it is.
And when's the next advisory out? How long from now?
18 minutes or less.
18 minutes. Do you think the eye is closing in?
I'm just wondering that. If it is, it's very slowly, doing it very slowly.
Which would represent a possible eye wall replacement process?
Maybe. Looking a little bit more fragmented after all. But I imagine we would have known by now from that flight if they were detecting an eye wall replacement cycle. Didn't hear it get mentioned before, so I assume there isn't any evidence of that. I'll take that silence as an affirmative, I guess. Let's see if we've got some more questions right now at this point. Could this be the worst year on record? That's a very broad question. There's many different parameters that you can use for that. I mean, it's probably already been the worst year on record for the island of Carriacou. But if you're talking about activity, I don't think so. If you're talking about accumulated cyclone energy, all to play for. If we're talking about the most major hurricane landfalls, there's quite a few records to beat there. It will have to do pretty well. And this system is getting wobbly, according to Yes, because shear is starting to increase. Is it because of that solely?
Maybe not solely. I'm guessing also it would be due to dry air interaction.
Nathan, you're saying it looks wobbly, but when I'm looking at the stream and the big satellite imagery, I'm looking at the eye, and the green represents what, but I don't think it's wobbling. We know that it's slightly, north or northwest?
You look around the rim of it there, it's gotten a little bit less stable. And by the looks of things there, maybe a slight northward jog just now as well.
it's not really that wobbly, but I guess I can. I see what you mean. I see what you mean, but you would have to look very closely.
We can get hung up on the wobbliness of the storm all day, but a slight northward jog there as well on that imagery, which is interesting and probably not a good thing.
Is there any more information to come from Recon, Ethan?
I think it'll be a few more minutes for another data drop.
Right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to step away for a minute.
Ah, there you are. David
Any
just asked
updated
oh,
info? Sorry, Nathan.
I'm sorry?
David
Any
was asking if
updated
you had any
info?
updates.
Yeah, the southwestern side has come out. They got a 145 mile an hour or 124 knot SFMR. So SFMRs appear to be working again, which is fantastic. Of course, now they work. And they've also got quite level winds of around 120 miles an hour, 105 knots. Which obviously that would not support Category 5 intensity right there, obviously.
Substantially weaker in that quadrant. Obviously, we expect it would, but quite lopsided there, really.
But we did get a drop sonde that reported surface winds of 140 knots, which
Really?
is 160 miles an hour. But major caveat to this: drop sondes record gusts.
Oh.
Yeah, hold your horses on calling Cat 5 based on that drop sonde.
Well, a massive dilemma then.
NHC, I imagine, are really looking over the data right now, and they will be releasing their advisory shortly, and we'll know what they run with. At the end of the day, it is entirely
Cat 5.
It's
no. I would still. I'd honestly, I need more passes to determine a more accurate intensity personally.
As for the Hurricane Center, though,
Ethan.
I really think it's going to be a coin toss here. You guys think it... Well, whether you think it should happen, do you think it will happen at the advisory?
I don't think it will happen.
No, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do an update safe this close.
I kind of have a gut feeling it will. I don't know. Something inside of me is just telling. I don't know. It's going to be a coin toss, like Nathan said. But I mean, we'll see. I think once again it comes down to near-term forecasting of this storm. What does it do in the next 2 hours? What does it do in the next 3 hours? How does this storm develop? Will it maintain Category 5 intensity if it is a Category 5 for that long? That's the question the NHC are looking for.
Someone.
Okay. Well, we're waiting for the data, but as of right now, we haven't heard any different. The last National Hurricane Center advisory had 150 mile per hour winds. We adjusted our estimate upwards to 155 miles per hour, which is right next to Category 5 status, pressure 940 millibars. We heard about 937 millibars in the eye. Was that extrapolated? What is it actually?
We'll need a drop sonde for that.
Okay.
Which NHC will already have the drop sonde data compared to us.
But we reckon it will be somewhere near 939.
I do believe it'll be around the high 930s. So exactly what number? I would be a bit reluctant to say an exact number. Just rough idea of high 930s would be my guess. Or would be my
thing.
That would be my prediction. Just high 930s. Once again.
I think 940 would be acceptable, but I don't know.
No, this is definitely in the high 930s.
I'm trying to think of. I'm thinking back to Hurricane Matthew now. When that operationally got Cat 5 status, what was that pressure? That was quite high.
9.
Let's have a look. You remember what day it happened?
October 1st at 0Z, I think it was.
Let's have a look.
Somewhere around there. Maybe 3Z.
9.
Yeah, whenever it did it, it had a pressure of 941.
Yeah, so higher than this then, I think. That's an interesting one. So there's precedence with a pressure like this in recent times. we await the verdict from the officials here as to whether this storm has made it over the line or not. But it's going to be one already at this point that's going to be up for possibly fierce debate. The update should be out in 10 minutes or less here.
It's going to be down for the wire, I imagine.
I really think so. It'll be very borderline here. And obviously if it happens, people's interest will skyrocket, even though not much will have actually changed. It's just the way of the world.
At the end of the day, this isn't really changing a whole lot about the storm's path in the future whenever it comes to its land impacts. It is not really changing a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're getting a slightly stronger storm for Jamaica, maybe 5-10 miles an hour.
It's not going to make too much of a difference, you're saying.
No, it's really not.
That could be the difference for Jamaica, though, between a non-major and a major hurricane.
Yeah, but once again, that's still.
But
very
in the grand scheme of things, the difference between a 110 mile an hour Cat 2 and a 115 mile an hour Cat 3 is very minimal. I mean, just look at Zeta in 2020.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this right now?
I
You
think
really
the
are
two
just
key-
watching and waiting. Sorry, David.
No, that's fine. I think the two key factors is the future direction and the cone, the track, and what was the forecast? 940, peaking at 940, and it could be down the 930. So it's already one model said the peak of 940, but it's still got quite a few more days to go, so anything remains possible, but close monitoring. But the next country, island, Jamaica, what sort of impact are we going to see on that?
Yep, could be strong Category 2 hurricane conditions there on Jamaica. If the storm makes a run up towards landfall, it's still entirely possible that happens. I would say more likely than not that they're going to get hurricane force winds, although at the moment the official stance is that the chances of hurricane force winds in Jamaica are at a rather low 30% along the south coast. So everyone's waiting for the advisory here. There's a new rapid scan satellite image which is indicating that the storm's temperature is still at 21 degrees. It was briefly 22 for a few moments earlier, and that is actually no, it briefly touched 23, didn't it? So it's actually gone down 2 degrees, which is interesting. But we are really looking at very little snapshots there of what's going on, and we want to try and establish a trend. But as of right now, we are just spying on Beryl here, which is continuing west-northwestwards with what looks like a bit of a northerly jog there in those last frames, and actually looking better once again in terms of that eye shape in those more recent frames, and a little bit more cloud top blow-ups wrapping around that north side again. So Recon are going to be all over this, and already have been today, and are going to continue providing updates. Are there any more planes later?
I'm not sure on that.
Yep.
Same.
Nathan?
Probably
Yep.
there might be a couple more.
News item from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, fatalities in the wake of Beryl, confirmed by the Prime Minister One person has died in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Prime Minister
has announced.
Yes.
No.
So, well, I mean, it would have been a pleasant surprise to not have the storm, for it to be a non-fatal storm, but unfortunately that happens usually even with the best will in the world. Obviously, a extremely powerful storm like this, although I still feel that they could have done better with early warning on the storm. It seemed to take a very long time for hurricane watches and warnings to get issued in the early stages of Beryl, and even we already knew what it was going to do, at least to category 2 level by that point.
So let's just say hypothetically that NHC call Cat 5 here. Will this be the first B Cat 5 in the Atlantic?
The update's out. It's 155 miles per hour and a pressure of 938 millibars. So you're going to wait a little bit longer for that potential Category 5 status. It hasn't happened. I was really scared. I was really worried it was going to have Cat 5, but
what pressure?
938 there on that update, and winds of 155 miles per hour. So hurricane hunters find Beryl even stronger as it moves quickly across the southeastern Caribbean. A hurricane warning has been issued for Jamaica. Good call, I think, on that one.
That is a good call. That is a good call.
So, hurricane warning for Jamaica, and it is not that fabled Category 5 status. It still remains a very upper-end Category 4 storm here. Not that it makes a huge amount of difference. It is near its peak intensity. Can it push itself just that little bit further? Well, if the NHC find any evidence of that, even if it's in 10 minutes, they'll issue an update statement.
Yes, they will. I guarantee you they will.
Mm-hmm.
And Nathan and Ethan just cited the posting on Twitter or X. Recon's first pass through the northeast quadrant of Hurricane Beryl found that it's on the cusp of becoming a Cat 5 hurricane. Flight level winds of 151 knots and SLP 937.
So the 8 p.m. advisory finds that Beryl is stronger, 155 mile per hour winds, hurricane warning issued for Jamaica. So that's going to be our breaking news right now, rather than this Category 5 status that we might have been expecting. What was that?
There's more. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has discontinued the tropical storm warning for those islands. The government of Trinidad and Tobago has discontinued the tropical storm warning for Grenada. The government of France has discontinued the tropical storm warning for Martinique. And the government of St. Lucia has discontinued the tropical storm warning for, obviously, St. Lucia.
Well, we lasted an entire 3 hours without a hurricane warning in effect, and they're back.
And moving west-northwest at 21 miles per hour.
Nathan.
Yep.
We had a confirmed fatality in this.
Yeah, we heard about that a moment ago. Have you got any more details?
I haven't gotten anything yet. They're not going to release something right as soon as it happens. I'll see what I can find. But I kind of agree with you. They did take their time getting these warnings out. If they had gotten them out sooner, we would have been able to prevent the fatality, but...
Well, maybe. We don't really know.
Yeah.
But it just felt pretty slow to me.
This was less.
I mean,
different.
stuff like this happen always. Like even though if let's just say how if a hurricane was coming towards the U.S., the warnings will be put out in time. But mostly, it's just sometimes there are people that decide to ignore the evacuation orders that the governor of the city declare. And when people notice the true power that is coming towards them, then they're gonna decide to leave, which is gonna put their lives at risk on the road that they're trying to escape, or they decide to stay and then the hurricane comes over, and it's too late for responders to come and get you. Like,
To add on to that, if I can, real quick,
yeah, sure, go ahead.
as somebody who is a first responder, just add on to that,
Mm-hmm.
and I know this is going to sound really kind of like messed up when I say this. Like, when there's a storm like this, we don't want to have to be going out for people. Because
I see what you mean.
our priority during that storm is, yes, going out for people, but if you know there's an evacuation order and you stay, not only are you willingly putting yourself at risk, but you're also putting us at risk, because then we have to come out and get you.
Yeah, and I say it sometimes if like amounts of 911 calls might be coming in, and the first responders are going to be saying that they can't come and get you because their cars would not be able to withstand that kind of wind speed outside. So you're pretty much putting yourself at risk right now because the first responders can't come and get you. So you pretty much you have to listen to the orders. If you have to evacuate, evacuate, because don't put your life at risk or the first responders as well.
I was just looking at the comments there. There's a little war going on there because it didn't get the Category 5 status at the advisory. But the temperature of the storm's eye is still at 21 degrees there. The very latest.
Is that eye wall collapsing or closing in on itself? No, I'm just looking at the inner area on the...
It could still do it. If it's... it would probably have to be by the next advisory. Preston, you've probably been listening to this. Your take on it right now.
I mean, not totally surprising. I think National Hurricane Center definitely made the right call. With reduction, the flight level winds would have been 136 knots. We don't know how long these conditions are likely going to last. Once again, we're just near casting here and we're watching on satellite. We have Recon in the storm, but I think certainly the right call was made. I'm very happy they issued a hurricane warning for Bermuda. No, for Jamaica. What am I saying? I apologize for that. But it is a correct call, I would say, and I think National Hurricane Center is taking warnings very seriously at this point. And once again, with the fatalities in the storm, I mean, it is a major hurricane. It is a significant hurricane. So I'm not entirely surprised to see that. It's terrible, but it is just a part of natural disasters.
So close, though. 136 knot flight winds after the reductions. Just 1 knot away from Category 5 status.
So, kind of want to actually touch on that. Me personally, after seeing everything this storm is doing and how it's going, I don't think this storm is going to reach a Category 5 status. I think it's going to stay as a high Category 4 at least. But I could be wrong. National Hurricane Center could decide to make it a Cat 5, but we won't know until they drop that advisory.
Well, it's right in front of us right now. That was the National Hurricane Center's view on this storm. 155 mile per hour winds, 938 millibars by that latest Recon pass. And what are we expecting in terms of, I mean, where are our Recon now? What are they up to?
They might go, well, they're going to go for a pass in the perpendicular direction. That's the next step.
All right.
But it's going to take them a little bit to get to that pass.
In the next half hour?
Around that area, yeah, I'd say.
All right. So if you've just joined us, that upgrade, not quite to Category 5 status, but mighty close it was. And a hurricane warning issued for Jamaica now. So they are now on notice here for hurricane conditions as well. I don't know what we're going to do with regards to our stream right now, whether we're going to stay on much longer or whether we might wait till 11 p.m. maybe. But I expect that we'll be doing quite a bit more coverage tomorrow as well as the storm approaches Jamaica. I imagine we'll probably do maybe a couple of hours in the morning and a few more hours in the evening tomorrow. But it has been an awfully long day. We've been here pretty much working most of the time since 4 a.m. Eastern time, and here we are right now at 8 p.m. So it's been a long day with this storm, and it's been keeping everyone on their toes as it's been moving through the southern part of the Lesser Antilles, the Windward Islands, and now into the Caribbean Sea, where it is reaching a new peak intensity for now. Whether it might beat it again later remains to be seen. So, latest satellite again showing that those black areas are wrapping all the way around after there was just a little bit of a gap a few moments ago, but it was very quickly filled in.
And Nathan, another key point relates to this system moving towards the wind shear environment, and that's going to be another key.
Time is ticking. Wind shear is nearby.
Preston, how many hours do you think before it'll start to fill the wind shear? But then looking at the size of it, it'll probably fight it, as we've seen previous systems do.
Yeah, I still think you have wind shear or less wind shear for another 9 to 12 hours. I think as the storm starts to move into Jamaica tomorrow, you'll definitely get weakening due to wind shear, and wind shear is going to increase then. But for now, I think you still get another good 6 hours of possible intensification due to lower shear. But then after that, you're going to have shear. I mean, the northern side of the storm is already undergoing that significant shear. That's why you see some of those bands being started, the northern bands at least, over the islands of the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, starting to, kind of get a little bit sheared. You can see it on satellite appearance. Kind of spread out, not as organized as the main center of the storm. So the main center of the storm, though, is in that weaker shear, about 5 to 10 knots. But just to the north, around Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, getting to 15, 20 knots. I just unfortunately closed my shear map, so I'll put that back up so you guys can take a look at that. But once again, the shear is going to increase tomorrow. Still got a few more hours of good intensification, though. Possible
and
intensification.
Preston, what about the upper level cyclone? What's that forecast to do?
Well, it will probably move to the east of the storm. I do know, looking just a bit remotely at the map, it does look like divergence did increase. So that means that ULAC may have intensified. But once again, it's probably going to displace as we move into tomorrow. But definitely, I mean, you can see the satellite appearance, the satellite loop of today. It has played a major role in Major Hurricane Beryl. And unfortunately, it has done destruction to the islands of that Nathan described.
These Windward Islands, mainly the Grenadines, that were particularly badly impacted by the storm, but all of the islands in that area, of course, had a ride. Barbados, Tobago, Trinidad, Grenada, all of the Grenadines in between there, and St. Vincent, and of course the epicenter of this whole event earlier today, when it made landfall on the island of Carriacou in the northern part of Grenada. A very devastating impact that was, and one that we've scarcely seen in that region. Now that ding means that our bottom bar has been updated. So there we are with the new info, and it will also describe the new hurricane warning that's in effect in Jamaica. So we didn't last very long without a hurricane warning active. I was proudly mentioning that towards the start of the stream, and we're back with it again with Jamaica now under the gun for a potential hurricane impact, and it's looking like it's getting more likely. Well, I think it always has been fairly likely ever since Beryl got to major hurricane status that it would be quite strong by the time it got down there. So 155 miles per hour and a pressure of 938 millibars indicated by some of those recon passes that we've been looking at. So we await more info. That's pretty much all we can do there, apart from looking at dissecting every little frame here on satellite. What I can tell you is that the eye temperature has been sticking around 21 degrees after peaking at about probably an hour ago, or just less than an hour ago, at 23 briefly, which is tied for the warmest temperature I've personally seen on a geostationary satellite eye. It is extremely high there, but looking good overall, even though it's not quite at that elite level that would bring it Category 5 status. Some people don't agree. Whether it is or not, it's a pretty close one. To be honest, why don't we make a poll on that? I'm sure that might capture people's thoughts.
Well, you know how that's going to go.
I know, I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
It'll be lopsided for Cat 5. Everybody wants to see a Cat 5.
Yeah, they a lot of people do.
It's what everyone is asking for.
That's Cesar. I was going to introduce you. Welcome aboard, Cesar.
Thank you, Nathan. All good here. Kind of surprised that this thing is still intensifying. Not really expected that it will last longer than just reaching the Caribbean Sea. But well, here it is, about to make history again. Beryl with that Cat 4, Cat 5 borderline. We'll see. Who knows?
24 people voted on that poll in the first 2 seconds anyway. So far 71% yes, so there you go.
What's crazy is not even 3 days ago, every model was hoping for the storm to smash right into the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, get sheared apart, and just completely flop. And now we're dealing with a borderline case.
For what it's worth, let's look at the updated National Hurricane Center map. I sort of want to say cone, but not really, because they haven't actually updated their forecast cone there. They've just applied the updated position, strength, of course, and the warnings. So Jamaica is now painted red. Hurricane warning there now, and a tropical storm warning for the south coast of Hispaniola. By the way, look out towards the east there. All warnings lifted, all clear for the Lesser Antilles. So it is just those two islands now with those warnings: Jamaica, hurricane warning, and tropical storm warning for the south coast of the Dominican Republic, from Punta Palenque westward through into Haiti and as far west as Anse de Haino. So this storm moving west-northwestward still at this point. 21 miles per hour is what they had it down at that last advisory, or 290 degrees, west-northwest, or 290 degrees there. 21 miles per hour, 33 kilometers per hour, and of course 155 mile per hour winds, just short of Category 5 status. But if someone was going to tell you a week ago that it was going to reach 155 miles per hour, I think people would be absolutely amazed at that, even if it isn't a Category 5. But so yeah, that poll went ahead there. 400 votes so far. 71% say that they think it is a Category 5. It's extremely close.
It's a bit of just a bit of technical speculation for you, Nathan. I know that you were mentioning the eye temperature hitting 22 degrees. Now, from a satellite perspective, that's an interesting question. Now, satellites do take their observations off of an angle. It looks like off of the Sims website, I got ADT and eye temperature data on a 20-degree angle. I'm not sure if you have the other storm that hit 23 degrees and the angle that was. I think it's really a remote sensing question to how that does play in. I'm not really sure how the satellite angle would affect a temperature reading given the forecasted or remote sensing data or method applied to get the perceived temperature. But just curious, just a point of interest I thought to bring up here.
A good point, because it is, it is quite square on the from the viewpoint of GOES 16, so it does have a bit in its favor when you compare to all the big hurricanes we have that are usually out to sea. Well, a lot of them can be further west in the Atlantic, can't they? But ones that happen further east, they're at a disadvantage. And I'm not sure. I have to think about some of the other examples that we've had in the past, but Beryl is in a pretty good position to get those temperatures as accurate as possible. According to Artemis in the chat, Recon found a closed circular 7 nautical mile wide eye. I don't know if that's true. But if it is only 7 nautical miles, it's much smaller than what appears on satellite. I can't see that being true. So.
Yeah, that's approaching pinhole level eye.
Yeah, 7 nautical miles is more like a pinhole eye, and usually it's
definitely a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah, with stronger storms actually than that as well.
So that's what we're hearing at this point, but we've got our team who are looking at all of that recon info as well. They haven't said anything yet. I don't suppose there's been any news, otherwise I think they would have chipped it. Yep. So they're prowling around the south side of the storm, are they?
Yes, they are. They are heading they're heading eastward at the moment to do a southeast to northwest pass.
Yep.
Which it's going to take them a little bit of time to move into the position and then actually do that pass.
And then it'll take a little bit longer for them to actually make the pass because it's moving away from them at 21 miles per hour. But they'll get there. Well, if you've just joined us, this is the latest imagery of Hurricane Beryl right now. It's a Category 4, nearly a Category 5. It's gotten tantalizingly close to that status. But as of right now, it is still 155 miles per hour and a pressure estimate now of 938 millibars derived from Recon estimates. So a very impressive storm. There's absolutely no doubt about that at the 8 p.m. hour here. And as we heard before, hurricane warning back in effect for a different area now, for Jamaica. And we sort of expected that would have been on the way, and it has now occurred. So a hurricane warning. So prepare accordingly there. I think they've been given a fair amount of notice already, but Jamaica, tomorrow especially, is the day to ensure that preparations are completed, because it's probably going to be reaching you early morning or maybe mid-morning on Wednesday, so there won't be much time for preparation on Wednesday morning. This is Force 13 Live. More coverage on Beryl. Whenever we decide we're finished with this stream, we're going to throw it back to our automated feed, which is running 24/7 on our YouTube channel. There's always something to look at on there. The satellite imagery updates all on its own. I muck in there with a few of the manual updates to update the storm's intensity and all that other info. But you got all that stuff on there, and of course you've got the Force 13 website where you can check out all the satellite imagery yourself on there through our web interface. So a lot of things to be looking at and plenty of viewpoints from Beryl, although we've got a little bit less viewpoints than we did have during the day, because obviously it's nighttime now, so we don't have the gift of the visible viewpoints. And of course we don't really have any webcams to show you either, because the storm is out of the area. Indeed, all the ones that I had up earlier have just they've all been scrubbed away as well. In fact, the only one that I've still got from earlier on is that camera in Martinique, and as you can see, things have calmed down a lot. Ooh, nice little wave there brushing up against the coast. We saw a few of those waves smashing up against those breakers earlier on today at this viewpoint, so a decent view there in Martinique, which had not too much of a struggle there. I don't even know if they ended up getting tropical storm force winds, but they were under a tropical storm warning earlier today when the storm was moving through. But the storm is moving away from there now, and no land areas are currently experiencing tropical storm force winds. Nice waves though.
Which is good.
Yep, certainly is.
Now the main question, what I be thinking is, what is it gonna do after it goes over the Yucatan Peninsula?
Aha.
That's the main question I'm thinking right now.
Yes.
Always.
Long way off. Long way off.
It's still far way out.
So long, yeah. But even though it's like a huge, thinking like, what is it gonna do? Even though right now it's still strong, still going. But now we're thinking, what is it gonna do after the next 5 days?
Kyle,
Well,
thanks
I
for
hate
your
to
support.
answer your question with the
Just said that they reckon it's 140 knots at the surface there. Apparently it's their third super to chat on a live stream, so they YouTube have told me to congratulate you, so well done there. And thanks for tuning in. But you were talking about, what was the last thing you just said there?
The model, the track after day 5.
Yes.
I think the GFS or the GEFS, they're painting the 18s did run. They had more members taking into Texas.
That's something we'll be able to take a look at together here then, if I've got that. I'm just going to load it up. So what we look at on the GEFS ensembles, they're all little models of their own, part of the GFS suite. So let's take a look first of all at what the GEFS was saying at 6C earlier on today. Here I am. And I'll try and move this, where is it? Further to the left there, showing the Gulf of Mexico, just about getting the coast of Texas there. This was the 6C update, and you can see all of those little blobs starting to, you see they're all concentrated together there as it passing Hispaniola, and then all those little model ensembles start to deviate gradually, and those are all different scenarios as to what could happen with this storm. The vast majority of them had it moving into the Yucatan, very close to Chetumal there, and entering into the Gulf of Mexico, very weak systems. One or two little outliers there had the storm stalling a bit in the Western Caribbean there. There's one there over the Cayman Islands, moving quite slowly and blowing up over Cozumel. And of course there's the other elephant in the room, a big storm that develops as it approaches Texas there. And then quite a few more after that, probably from a different system. That was the earlier model. Let's check 12Z and see if any of that changed. So there it is. Good agreement at first, and then it all starts to split up very close to Jamaica. So really, Still very uncertain whether the storm will pass north or south of Jamaica, but in this instance the majority goes south still, and in those later images, most of those ensembles hold on to their intensity better in the Gulf of Mexico, and I would say the consensus is for a landfall in northern Tamaulipas, Mexico, and moving inland, but a couple of ensembles there taking it to Texas. I don't think that's actually increased the number of ensembles that take it into Texas there, but a lot of them get pretty close, of course, just down south of the border there. So interesting viewpoint from that 12Z ensemble update. And thanks for bringing that to our attention. But in the meantime, we are tracking this storm live. It has a beautiful eye there with very warm temperatures inside it. Earlier on, 23 degrees recorded in the eye. I'll be looking very carefully to see if we get anything close to that again. But right now it's dropped a little bit and it's been sticking around the 20-degree mark. Now that is partly because I think the convection's got better all around it as well. I'm seeing more and more of a black ring all around the storm there. That's minus 70s in terms of cloud tops. So I think it is really filling up with higher cloud tops at this point.
I think
Well,
that's
I'll be
really
right.
interesting.
Go on.
What I'm also
I think
noticing,
it's-
Preston, I just want to make this point. It seems to me, especially when you look on the further out imagery, the core of the storm, it looks like it's getting increasingly stranded. All of the bands that are around it seem to be gradually dying away.
Well, I think that's something we need to keep an eye on. The first thing is most of that convection is starting to pop up in that southwestern flank of the storm, which I think is very interesting, at least given the shear. I think another thing that's interesting is, yes, those bands on the outside. Now, they are probably in that band of increased shear that we see to the north. I think another point of intrigue is the few showers and thunderstorms that have kind of developed to the east of that line, maybe a bit to just the east of that line. If those develop into new bands, you could see more banding. Right now, it's just an interesting feature. I kind of noticed that a few hours, maybe like a couple minutes, like 20 minutes ago. But you can see that on the visible satellite water vapor imagery just to the northeast of that main ring, as you can call it. But once again, I do agree. Convection is starting definitely to increase. And I'd like to note, as a satellite geek, someone studying atmospheric science, you can definitely see the gravity waves that are propagating from the center of the system as you see the IR imagery. Quite fascinating stuff.
A northward jog not long ago. Looks like we've had a bit of a counteraction there, a little bit more towards the west now in those later frames. But given how small this storm still generally is, it can't be taking that long for Recon to swivel around and go for another pass. Ethan, are they on their way yet?
They're on their way.
They're still on their way. Oh, Maury's showing a viewpoint actually as well. You can see where they are. Oh, they are actually going in there now. They're heading in from the southeast. They've lined up and they're going through.
Should be interesting to see what they find.
I would say just give them time.
And Maury's showing us some of that wind data from earlier. Flight level wind there, 146 knots on its first pass into the storm when it moved straight in from the northeast. But Ethan, you reckon that on the northeast side there, the 151 you said that they caught, right? Whether that's the highest this storm was producing at that time?
I don't know. And what's to say that there couldn't be stronger winds elsewhere? That's why we're at Recon are going to do multiple passes of every side of the eye wall. Like the northeastern side, I guarantee you will be sampled again.
All
And
right.
they need to ensure the
You never know.
trustworthiness.
That one pass could be finding the storm actually peaking, or it could be finding just the bare minimum. Honestly, it could be still more yet to come in that eye wall. So more passes, more information should help out how strong the storm really is.
Well, really fascinating stuff earlier when they upgraded it to 155 miles per hour, just shy of Category 5 hurricane status. Extremely powerful is still how we would describe this storm, and potentially still getting better. Just cloud tops still increasing all around it there. There's a few other viewpoints that we can show you as well. There's this angle, which is showing the again the storm's progression there. A little bit of a hybrid type of imagery on that. Doesn't look quite as good on this particular imagery, which is interesting. This was the wider ram shot from the last few frames, and just showing how much red is appearing on that satellite imagery. This is the imagery that I'm most used to. It's what is the Zare. It's the Zare enhancement, which is my sort of weapon of choice there, mainly because it's compatible with older storms to make more direct comparisons with. Is the main reason I've probably gone and adopted this over time. But you can see how the storm has been progressing, and those cloud tops once again more red than ever before all around that eye region. And just to quickly update that imagery as well, there might be some new frames. Yeah, pretty much completely encircling it right there.
What does the red represent?
Yep, so that red is the same as the black on this imagery. That's minus 70 degrees Celsius, and a few parts of the bands getting up towards minus 75 right now.
I know we spoke about it before we came live. The right represented right.
Yeah, more than minus 75.
Would I be correct in saying that it's continuing to develop, and factoring in how much longer the system's got before the wind shear factor comes into play? But then we know systems can fight wind shear, so and sea surface temperature 29-30 Celsius, so that's a non-issue. So basically, anti-cyclone Preston, when you were showing the sims, I think it was up to 20 knots. So that's the
to me,
level divergence.
To me, it feels like a ticking time bomb right now as to
yes,
when is the storm's time going to expire? Well, it's not just yet. We haven't properly spoken to Cesar yet, who is also with us right now. Another one of our regular contributors, and has produced video updates on Beryl. Cesar, are you there? After a
yes,
build up
Nathan,
like that.
I'm here. Sorry, I was
there he is in the background.
Your thoughts on Beryl then, Cesar? It's gotten oh so close to Category 5 status.
Well, definitely something surprising at some point. Of course, we were expecting a little weaker system earlier today with 145 after failing with the forecast that initially thought that it's going to reach only Category 2 status. So this is something unprecedented. It's something that we've never seen before in recent years. So it's like, as I said before, once in a lifetime situation or moment in the cyclone history. And well, in Mexico, there's been a lot of memes about that Beryl is going to have the same track as Hurricane Gilbert of 1988. I mean, I don't know. Of course, the intensity is not going to be the same, but the track could be quite something similar, maintaining the northwestwards direction and moving towards the Gulf of Mexico as possibly could do in the next 5 days. But of course, it's a really far off forecast yet. But hopefully it won't cause a lot of damage in Jamaica and its pass, and as well in the Yucatan Peninsula if it does so, depending on how this storm behaves in the future. But so far, I mean, I'm quite impressed on the recent presentation of this system, since the cloud tops are getting colder, and of course there's still signs of, if not intensification, but at least maintaining the strength for quite some hours still.
At this point in time, in the same position, Gilbert was only becoming a Category 1 hurricane. So far, Beryl has beat Gilbert. That was a peak season monster that was 888 millibars. So, I don't think that trend is going to continue very much longer, but that's an interesting comparison. You know what, though? The track is somewhat similar. Of course, Beryl started off further south, and it's still quite a little bit further south than where... But they'll sort of meet their track points when they get to Jamaica, pretty much there. But interesting discussion, I'm sure. Let's see if we can get some comments right now. And any lightning in Hurricane Beryl right now? Preston, you showed us very early on in the stream what the lightning situation was looking at like, and there was a lot of it in the eye. An eyeball region. Is that still correct?
Let me get it pulled up here shortly. That was from about like maybe 2 hours ago. So we'll get a new scan here, see if there's lightning in the eye. I'll just take maybe 30 seconds to a minute on that, and I'll have it for you just in a second.
Whilst we wait for that, let's go to Maury right now, who is showing Recon in the eye, or about to enter the eye there. What winds are they getting there? 97, 105.
Yeah, about that. Of course, they haven't intercepted the full eye wall yet, so still have winds yet to come. But this cyclone, it does seem like the southeastern side possibly is slightly weaker. We'll have to see.
So far 105 knots there on approach to the eye on the southeast quadrant. That's 120 miles per hour. It's flight level though, so it'll be a bit lower than that. But they may just squeak out a higher wind reading there shortly before they enter the eye, and then hopefully we can get another pressure estimate from that shortly.
Back now with the lightning track. It does look like lightning has started to continue in the eye. Latest scan is now from 2230 to 2330Z. Looks to be mainly in the eastern section of the eye wall, but given with time, it could possibly be from the entire section, really, of the eye wall. But definitely that does signify an increasing storm. You can also see lightning on the outer bands of the storm. With that shear, so you could wonder if that shear is starting to help maybe feel some thunderstorms in that band. Once again, the main concern is the eye wall and the lightning in the eye wall, possibly signifying intensification.
Plenty of lightning on the northern side there.
Yes.
The northern bands, I should say. But regards the eye wall, looked like it was all around there.
We're
Indeed.
still looking very healthy.
So far, so good, but usually tropical cyclones doesn't have a lot of thunderstorm activity, but when it does, it's a signal of still some intensification, and Beryl has maintaining a ring of lightning strikes for almost a day. So it has been a really interesting scenario of what Beryl has shown so far.
Well, we keep scrutinizing this satellite imagery very closely as it continues to move west-northwest. Looks like the eye may be shrinking a little bit more on those latest frames. Best indication I've got right now, yes, the eye has definitely shrunk. We were looking at about 36 kilometers earlier. It's now 30 kilometers, which is 19 miles.
Which means?
Not much yet, but if it continues in that manner, we might have another eyewall replacement cycle.
Sorry, local kit.
But I don't think, well, we haven't got one yet, that's for sure.
Or we have to wait and see. Probably we'll figure it out within the next 3-4 hours.
So if you've just joined us, the update that came out earlier, the 8 p.m. advisory, decided from the National Hurricane Center that it was 155 miles per hour, pressure estimate of 938 millibars, extremely powerful storm. It missed Category 5 status by a hair's breadth by the looks of things on that advisory, and is still frustratingly to some viewers, I think, a high-end Category 4. But some people think it ought to have been a Category 5. There is a case for it earlier on, especially. Maybe still a case for it moving forward. But we've got to get the direct data to support it, and that would be from the Recon flights, which are moving through the storm right now. The eye of the storm literally just about to, the plane about to pass through it right now for a night pass inside the eye of the storm, one of many that will be occurring tonight by the looks of things. And they captured some pretty strong winds on the way in, not as strong as in the northeast quadrant earlier, but still quite interesting to say the least. Let's look at the latest eye temperature. I'm just looking on my other screen. We are still at 20 degrees, so still a very warm eye, not quite as much as earlier, but once again convection is higher around it as well, so I think overall it's improved just a little bit. And if you also missed it at the advisory, all of the warnings have been lifted on the Lesser Antilles. Tropical Storm Watch was issued earlier for the southern coast of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and now the latest, a hurricane warning issued for Jamaica. And that was pretty much to be expected. We also neglected to tell you about an update to the other tropical disturbances in the area, and you'll be pleased to know that they've dropped Invest 96L even further now to 40% chance in the next 7 days. Of course, yesterday they were giving it a 70% chance of forming this system behind Beryl, but now 40% chance, and hopefully that will continue to decrease. That's what we'd like to see. We were very concerned at one point that we'd be seeing a double whammy hurricane impact from both of those systems, Beryl and whatever was behind it. Looks like that is not going to be coming to fruition, and still giving a 40% chance in the Eastern Pacific as well, for the area of interest that could form along the coast of Pacific Mexico. And a reminder once again of just how dead the Eastern Pacific Basin is. Here it is, just off the coast of Mexico. Well, you can see some of it. If we don't get a storm by July 6th, it's going to be the latest start in the satellite era in the Eastern Pacific. What has it done to deserve that? An extremely quiet start.
Nathan, Ethan and Preston, just picking up a comment in the casual discussion internally, any signs of a mesovortex within the eye?
And there's always plenty of them. They were much more visible much earlier on in the day. Indeed, there was
Yeah,
one
I
that
think
was really darting across the eye when it
sorry.
was. There was one that was darting across the eye when it was making landfall. It looked really surreal. But go ahead.
I think you really have to go. I mean, it's much easier to see mesovortices early in the day, when the sunlight is shining upon it. But I mean, as we go into the nighttime hours, it's going to be more difficult to picture these out. Once again, earlier in the day we saw plenty. I'm sure they're still going on. I mean, at this intensity, and with the lightning in the eye, would suggest an intensifying storm and potential for mesovortices. I think once again the time is ticking for this storm. It will eventually start to weaken. The question is just when.
It's a good point.
Well,
And we wait
we are waiting. Yes.
for the see what the final result of the Recon flight's going to be, and what the NHC is going to say in their next advisory.
Yeah, we'll be there for a little while. I got to tell you, we are going to be finishing coverage at the end of the hour because I'm too tired.
Recon passed. We got
I feel that, Nathan.
we got
We've been-
138 knot flat level,
Okay.
and we had SFMR values of 137 knots.
Okay.
Oh,
That's not the highest we've had, though, is it?
For the SFMRs, no. But this would support an intensity if you were to take it at face value of 155 miles an hour.
Another one. Another one just short of Category 5 status. I should qualify what I just said, though. I do plan to finish coverage at the end of the hour, but I will be saving myself and staying up a little bit. I'll be watching the 11 p.m. advisory just to make sure it doesn't get to Cat 5. And if it does, we'll do an update. But it's mainly just watching this storm at this point, and we can sort of all do that on the automated stream, which we'll be passing you over to in 15 minutes time. But for the time being, we're still looking at this storm. Very powerful, nearly a Category 5. It is starting to run out of time, though, and we may start to see weakening soon. But it's not yet. We're still seeing those winds, and those are in different quadrants as well, so we can't really compare that to the earlier winds. It may well still be holding, or maybe still intensifying. Did we hear anything about the pressure reading in there?
Let me check.
I'd like to wait on drop Sean for that.
You want to
Oh.
wait for
Someone
it
in the
drops in?
comment section is saying that it was 934.1 extrapolated.
That's right, extrapolation there of 934.1. That's certainly the lowest we've had. It won't be quite that low in reality, but looks like it might get a little nudge downward in real terms from that 938 that we had at the last advisory.
So saying Tim's commented 934.
Yeah, extrapolated.
So how did now what quadrant?
Well, that's the center of the storm.
That's the centre. So what would that do to? And that's like I'm going to thinking of the wind speed for the Cat 5. So the wind speed would actually have to be a lot higher.
But it's close. It's just shy of Category 5 status. Will it happen tonight? That's the big question.
And Tim's saying it's still deepening, and we've still got the time to do it.
Well, yeah, that Recon data, I mean, it is deepening in the truest sense of the word. Its pressure estimate is decreasing, and that's what deepening usually refers to. But whether it's actually strengthening, whether it's getting stronger winds or not, is a question mark. Mario, just looking over some of that data there, what have they got in northwest side there?
That actually seems to be the stronger side out of the northwest and the southeast. That is where they got
That's the one.
130 knots. It seems like 138 knots. It's just not showing it here. Of course, you got that pressure reading of 934.1 down here. And that was flight level 11 knots, as that was in the eye. It does look like they are leaving the center now, but they will likely make another pass.
We'll see where they end up.
Will this be the third pass?
They've done 2 so far.
And how much longer could they stay in the system?
That I don't know. I don't know.
Murray? Or Ethan?
Unknown. Depends on fuel level, which fuel level isn't disclosed to us.
If they stock up, though, it's not a short flight from their base. It's not a long flight from their base, so they could possibly spend quite a bit of time in here.
I mean, it's possible, and you have to think the last Recon flight did like 4 passes of the eye. So we'll see. I would like to point out another feature. Looking at that 1-minute imagery that you have up, I think that eye is becoming a bit more ovular and not circular. It's starting to lose its shape a bit.
It is.
At least non-uniform, if you will, of that eye.
It is, and
in a circular shape,
and shrinking just a little bit. It is 29 kilometers north to south by 26 kilometers east to west. So not a perfect circle. Feel free to send in your comments and questions right now. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. Fallen Ice X says, the satellite looks like Dean. I don't know if you've got any comments about that, guys.
No.
What was the intensity of
way
Dean
much
again?
better.
Well, Dean was quite a powerful Category 5 storm.
165, I believe.
It was 175 and 905, one
Yeah.
of the strongest in the Atlantic ever.
Let me look at this.
175.
Probably wasn't quite that strong, though.
I believe it was 165.
So we're still looking at this. Zoom out a little bit more maybe, and we can show you the wider picture as it passes into the eastern Caribbean Sea. It's thankfully now well clear of the islands that it caused such issues on not long ago. It doesn't feel like very long ago, but that landfall occurred earlier on at can't even remember what time it was. It was 11:05 a.m. when it made landfall on the island of Carriacou in Grenada, and then it was moving northwestwards, strengthening a little bit further, and then it leveled off for a bit, maybe even slightly weakened for a short time, and then has doubled down once again and blowing up once again. And even though the eye may be showing some early signs of losing its shape, you look at the wide shot and it still looks really good. Cloud top still blowing up all around it.
Yeah.
Large areas of minus 70 degree plus cloud tops, and an eye temperature still hovering around 20 degrees Celsius. Although, in fact, a new reading here has it down to 19. So it's knocking off 1 or 2 degrees here and there. Perhaps an indication that Beryl's reign might be under threat here.
From?
I don't know whether it's just losing its shape or whether it's wind shear already starting to get to it.
Or an eyewall replacement?
I don't think so yet. Not unless Recon have something to say about that, but no one's mentioned it yet. But it does feel to me as though it's probably going to be now or never for a Category 5 peak. And I was just thinking about what Christopher just messaged. I was thinking the same thing while she said that. Is it possible that if Beryl doesn't get the Cat 5 rating, it will get upgraded in post-analysis, basically? Is there grounds from all of the readings we've seen so far to call it a Category 5 with a fair amount of confidence?
Maybe not a fair amount of confidence. There is that tiny little, like, you know, how the Recon came in kind of late to some people. I don't know if that would be enough, though, to Category 5 in the future.
One of those ones, then, so borderline that we really don't know.
They could do it just for the record, but to be honest, it's quite difficult to say right now. Of course, it's a really high debate or hard debate about whether it's Category 4 or Category 5, because either way it's a really strong storm. The structure itself, it's absolutely beautiful, and maybe it could have the ingredients to be a Cat 5, just only 2 miles per hour difference, but don't know. I mean, the instruments are there, the tools are there, but of course we must be aware that sometimes the instruments can get contaminated or polluted, so the readings could be wrong, and that's why the post-analysis is there to make more precise calculations, calibrations, take more analysis in the papers. So I don't know. I'm not sure yet, but it's always a chance.
New satellite frame back up to 20 degrees again, so it is still fluctuating a little bit right there, but the eye is still well and truly with us. And again, I think might just be finding its shape again, Preston, in those latest frames. Just a very short period where it just looked like it might have been getting stretched, but I think it's just righted itself once again here on that latest frame.
Well, we'll see. As the famous saying goes, weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. So we'll see. But I mean, it probably will. Once again, 6 to 12 hours. I think this storm is going to start to weaken. But that eyewall shape definitely has been improving, even after that bit of rough patch. But we'll see. Does it wobble again? Does it fall again? That's, I mean, once again, just a quick mesoscale look. But I can tell you, those cloud tops look to have been maybe another burst in the last 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, certainly looks that way. That we are getting these cloud tops still really bubbling up here. The National Hurricane Center will be updating in 2 hours, but because we've been working hard all day, we are going to be calling it a night in just a sec. But I can tell you that if we do get any surprise updates tonight, or maybe not so much a surprise if it really does look that way, and actually becomes a Category 5 storm, then we'll be absolutely all over it, even if it is at 11 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time or Eastern Time. But for the time being, we are going to be finishing up. Thoughts from our team then? Do we think it can do it?
I mean, really all we can say is it's possible. It's just a possibility.
Ethan, you think it'll happen?
Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen. Diplomatic right there. JJ, how about you? Jose?
I guess so. I guess it can. Possible.
Well, that's what a few of our
I have one word.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would like to say.
that could be...
I would like to say one word, Nathan.
Yep.
I don't think it's going to be a Cat 5. I'm sorry.
Hold on a minute,
It's
that's
not
way
going to
more
be a
than
Cat
one
5. I
word.
don't see it happening.
It's way more than
Well,
one
fair,
word.
fair
Wide
enough. Fair
opinion.
enough.
I mean, like I said, I don't know. Honestly, we'll just have to see.
All right.
But I am not throwing my head in the ring.
For the time being, we'll be throwing it now to our automated stream. You can stay up to date on that, and I'll be updating the graphics on that in just a sec. It still has 150 on there when it should be 155, of course. But if we do get any updates, Category 5 warnings or whatever, at the 11 PM advisory, I'm not sure what we'll do yet. We'll either do a video update or maybe a brief live update. But in the meantime, this is Beryl. High-end Category 4, it got so close so far, it still might happen. Category 4 status, hurricane warning now in effect for Jamaica. We'll have more coverage if it doesn't become a Cat 5 tomorrow morning. But for now, good night from us.